Yeah. All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for signing in. We'll jump through the packet. Again, it's nothing super exciting. We got a few little tidbits in here though that I threw in. And it looks like Jacob's on, so we'll be able to get an OSU extension update to burn a few minutes here. Let's jump on in. Nothing exciting on page 2. Continuing to see that price floor erode. The majority of this is based upon the fact that, our demand is just lacking still. That coupled with your futures continuing to push down. You see that March contract at 567 is where it closed yesterday, 567 and a quarter on the May, and 570 on the July. Those are pushing down towards recent lows, obviously, we've seen. So, but we continue to push a little lower. This morning we were down about 3 cents when I got into the office. I haven't checked it here in the last 25, 30 minutes to see where we're at, though. If we're not down probably double digits today, I would say we're probably going to stay at the same cash price when we come out this morning. What we've got going on is exporters. Most of the business they're working on right now is April to May shipment period. If you start looking at that, historically, June is a very dead month shipping wise. Most of our buyers, they don't want to get caught year to year in a position where they're having to purchase and ship stuff right at the very end of the marketing year. So what they're going to do is a lot of times make sure they've got their shipments in May that's going to cover them, hopefully on their side over through new crop or into new crop. That being said, if our moisture stays in a good situation, we never know what spring's going to bring, but a late harvest, if these buyers, we see that typically where sometimes the front half of our harvest, if we're able to get going before everybody else, we can see some of that favorable pricing because the exporters have, middle to last half of July shipments on the books. And for the, most of the river system, it gets pretty tough to realistically expect enough grain coming in and getting it to Portland, to the port to get it shipped. So I'm not saying it's, worth the storage and obviously cost of money and missed opportunities on other things to keep holding on, hoping for that. I'm just saying potentially we could see a little bump. It might be one of those instances where, some of that early grain right off the combine, obviously, usually by that time of year, there's always some sort of bills to pay. Hopefully we're having to pay for a bunch of propy applications because it's going to be wet and cool. Steve shaking his head yes. So maybe there will be some pricing opportunities. I've heard some pretty low numbers projected by some people once we get into an August timeframe on pricing. So I'm not quite ready to break that news to you yet, but I would expect, around that $6 figure or higher the front part of harvest, but then possibly, especially if we're looking at a big crop and P&W potentially, by the time we're grinding it out in mid-August, we could be, that sub 6 figure very easily. We jump in to the export sales report starting on page 3. Pretty good number for white wheat, 3.9 million bushels. However, you need that when you look up there and see some of those, 1 million, basically zero for some of those weeks in your 10-week history. But looks like your 10-week average is about 3.1, which that's usually not horrible. But our exports were so slow at the front part of the marketing year, which we'll take a look at where we're at for the year on page 6. And as we dive into there, that's wheat of all classes. Excuse me. Let's go to white wheat on page 10. And, you want to talk about why is the price doing what it's doing when we didn't have a huge crop in P&W this year? We'll take a look at that marketing year-to-date sales number, the second line down over on the left-hand side. At this point in the marketing year, 134 million bushels versus last year, 152. You know, our big year was that 21-22 with 228. So, I mean, you're 100 million bushels off that pace from a couple of years ago, which that really tightened up the supplies. And you had a lot of that swing buying going on. If we take a look at this week's number of 3.9, typically, you know, yeah, that would be a number to kind of pay attention to. However, when you take a look at it, looks like a shade over 3 million bushels of that on the right-hand side, second from the bottom, was to the Philippines. I mean, that's routine business. Everybody knows that wheat was going to get bought, you know, at the beginning of the year. It's going to be part of their book of business. You take a look at for the year, it puts them at almost 40 million bushels. So that's not like it's some swing business that came in and that's going to really, you know, 3 million bushels that's going to disappear that we weren't expecting to disappear on the balance sheet. So yes, it's bushels that's leaving. Keeps us kind of on pace where we thought we were going to be, but it isn't anything that's super exciting. As we take a look down there through the top 10 marketing year to date export countries, obviously Philippines #1, it's always there, and then Japan and South Korea continue to be obviously our strong trade partners. They're usually kind of on par with each other year after year. Indonesia and then China. That Yemen business is actually a little higher than that. That's wheat actually purchased by Yemen, not just our donation tenders. So you can probably almost double that number based upon U.S. government purchases and shipments that don't get classified as an export because they're bought domestically. That's that. You know, people want to talk about, well, what's the hope of China coming in and buying? At this point, part of me wants to say, well, you know, pricing is there. They should be. But the fact they're not in buying right now, you've also got to look at historically, it's pretty cyclical, they're buying. Just because they buy, you know, 20 some million bushels one year doesn't mean the next year they're going to be in. There could be in for half that. A lot of times they'll buy, they stockpile commodities, is what we all believe. And then, you know, it'll get them through years where they make very little in purchases. There's an article I included that was forwarded to me on page 17. And it's, I mean, it's a pretty 30,000 foot level article, but it's just talking about the commodities and the supplies that it's believed that's within China's borders. And it mentions a little blurb there just regarding grain markets face similar issues around oversupply after last year's binge on imports. You know, we had big years of not only wheat, but corn and soybeans. Right now, I haven't seen anything in the last week or two to update it, but you know, China's last round of wheat buying in this year was soft red wheat out of the Gulf. And as of about 2 weeks ago, that stuff hadn't been shipped. Supposedly the ships were lined up ready to load, but they had not loaded yet. There were some delays on that. So that kind of gets everybody nervous when they're not picking up what they've purchased. So I will check on that though and see what's going on. Last week I had somebody ask me, you know, what did Australia end up doing? And so I included an article that was forwarded to me, and this was from a few weeks ago, but it just kind of gives you kind of a snapshot of what happened there. Everything was pretty ho-hum and average yields for them. So I don't see any questions, so I will flip it over to Jacob if he's got anything to update. And then if anybody has any questions, I'll try to answer them here when Jacob wraps up.
All right, thank you, Justin. Good morning, everyone. And yeah, like Justin was saying, the strep rest year, the forecast for strep rest this year is that it's going to be a more severe year than in the past. So yes, definitely you need to be planning on applying some appropriate fungicide when we get close to that time this spring. Had not been tracking this, but Christina Haggerty made a comment in a recent class that she was helping me with, that the price for a lot of fungicides has also increased a lot recently. So that might be some sticker shock this year too when you look at your fungicide bill. Just a heads up for people. I don't think it's as severe as what we've seen with fertilizers in the past, but definitely an increase with inflation and everything else this year. That seems like those costs have been increasing. I think some supply chain shortage stuff possibly too is contributing to that. So just a heads up on those fungicide prices. But the flip side is, hopefully, if you've got to be applying fungicides, usually that means that we're going to have a decent crop in terms of yield. So hopefully that'll be something to look forward to after last year's crop. Just some real brief updates on extension programming that I'm kind of trying to get wrapped up at the tail end of winter here. So I am doing my farm first aid training like I've done in the past. That's going to be in the Dalles on Wednesday, February 21st, next Wednesday, from 12:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. Cost is $20 for that, and you can pay for that at the door with cash or check. I will say as well, with the farm first aid training, I recently was notified that a grant that I had submitted was funded to put on these farm first aid trainings in Spanish as well. We're not going to have those up and rolling till next winter, but just letting people know, if you have employees that are Spanish speaking and the English one might be a stretch, consider sending them to the one we're going to be doing next year. So just a heads up with that. Also going to be doing one last pesticide training before people get busy in the field. That's going to be on Wednesday, February 28th. So last Wednesday of February. Again, also that's going to be in the Dalles. Both of these are going to be at the Columbia Gorge Community College in the Dalles, the usual spot. Pesticide training will be from 1:30 to 4:30. And we're going to have, the plan is to have 3 ODA pesticide credits available. So we're just going to have 3 credits. 2 of the 3 will be core credits though. So if you want some core credits, you can get 2 from going to this training. And also we are charging $20 for this class as well. Trying to focus on this upcoming pesticide training on the coax and wheat varieties, and also talking more about stripe rust and other wheat diseases that might be increasing this spring, I think, compared to previous years, just with how much precipitation and the snowfall that we've had. Also, I've tried to talk about some of the biofertilizer research trials that I've done, and a couple of the other trainings I've done. Just a lot to talk about with those. So I'm trying to do a separate webinar on March 1st from 12:30 to 1:30. So again, so if you're interested in hearing more about those biofertilizer products, I'm just holding a webinar. That way people over in Pendleton that are interested to hear results can also hear kind of what some of our findings were. So that's March 1st, Friday, March 1st, starting at 12:30. If you're interested, let me know. I'm going to be sending out an email later this morning with all this information too. Finally, just to conclude, I've mentioned to this group before that the Tri-County Hazardous Waste and Disposal program was interested in holding a triple wash container recycling event for producers. So they have a date set for that. It's in May. I know people are going to be busy, but their set date is May 29th from 8 a.m. to noon at the Dalles disposal. So if you have a lot of triple rinse containers that you're thinking about burning this spring, you can hold on to them and bring them to a recycling event on May 29th. So again, that's May 29th, 8 a.m. to noon. And they definitely want people to know that they expect containers to be triple rinsed. They don't want any labels stuck to them anymore. They don't want the caps on. So just a heads up with that they do want some people to do some cleaning prep so that they can recycle them as best they can. So that concludes my update. And like I said, a lot of stuff I just mentioned, you'll probably get an email later today. Oh, you're muted, Justin.
Jacob, I've got a question here in the room. Do you need to RSVP for the pesticide credit training?
No. I mean, you can if you want, but it's gonna be pretty informal and laid back. So I mean, if you just want to show up there at 1:30, you'd be fine. So
Perfect. Thank you.
thank you.
All right. Nobody else has got anything. I will go ahead and dismiss class, and we will see you guys all again on March 1st, hopefully. My new computer's not letting me update these schedule sheets that's on the front of your packet, so maybe in 2 weeks I'll have it figured out with Daniel and we can get those dates updated. But next meeting will be March 1st. Talk to everybody later.